Well, g'day everybody. It's a special edition, whoop, whoop, and all that. It's not the tracker. I'm going to do the tracker after this. But there's a lot of stuff fluffing around about the weather leading into Cape Horn at the moment. Some of you may have heard about it already, some maybe not, but there's all this sort of talk about a superstorm, an apocalyptic Cape Horn storm, and all these sorts of issues. You may have seen that one of the Ultons, de Rothschild, has hooked up with Sterner coming in towards Cape Horn yesterday, which was a lot of fun. You know, and Ada did a really cool little video there. If you haven't seen that, make sure you do, because the skipper's mentioning that he's just come across Sterner. He's doing 30 knots and Sterner's doing 8 knots, and they're chatting on the VHF, and they passed across weather to them and stuff. And Sterner put in their tweets, a bit of excitement, bit of fun for them, which was really cool. And there are quite a few boats down there at the moment going around Cape Horn. There's the Solo Global Challenge, another solo race, and there's the OGR, and then there's the Archaea Autumn race going around, and all sorts. So, and a few boats have already gone around Cape Horn, and our fleet, as you know, we'll talk about that in a bit over half an hour, is about, leaders are about 900 miles or so, I think it is, from Cape Horn, and that's probably about 5 days or so away from there. And then the mid-fleet will be a few days after that, and so on. And believe me, they're not in any danger at all. I've taken emails from managers, I've taken comments and messages on social media and other emails. Oh, what's going on with this big superstorm? Because very sensibly, the skipper of the Ultim that's heading towards Cape Horn has decided to back off and slow down a bit, because there is a bit of a blow scheduled to pass around Cape Horn about when he was there. And it's pretty much a normal Southern Ocean low pressure system that's going to go around, and it's not apocalyptic, and it's not the storm of the century or anything like that. It happens down around Cape Horn. So I thought the best thing to do was just to explain the weather that's going on down there for now, and then I'll interface that with the tracker when we get there. So I've got Windy here, and I'm going to give you a walk around Windy and show you how that works and what it means and so on. So if I go there, so you should be looking at Windy right now, and I'm on the same screen. So this is a very typical screen for Windy. Windy is a free weather service. There it is there, windy.com. I use this extensively, and you'll see up the top here, if you can see that, I've got a premium subscription, which is really fantastic, and it costs about $18 a year. So if you're into weather, just get the premium subscription, and you get all sorts of other gadgets and add-ons that you can use. And there's so many things you can use, whether you're into weather for flying or surfing or sailing or motorbike riding or mountain bike riding. Anything you want to know about the weather is all here. And it's just massive amount of information. If I hit this sidebar, I think you should be able to see that. This is some of the add-ons you got, air turbulence, wind accumulation, rain accumulation, snow depth, precipitation, thunderstorms, dew point, humidity, solar power, UV index, high cloud, medium cloud, low cloud, base cloud, index swells. You got 3 swells there. You got the main swell, the secondary swell, third level swell. We look at them all. And it just goes on and on and on. And you can actually dial up specific forecasts for your area, tidal currents, ozone layer, surface layer, air quality. If you're worried about nuclear reactors blowing up, you can see what the nuclear readings are and what's happening, drought monitoring. It's a fantastic program, okay? I can't recommend it enough. And you can pick the main key elements that you want. And this is what we've got here. I can get everything I need on this little sub bar here. You can have different models too. You can have a 3D model there. If I pick this, there's the world going crazy. I can show you this, and I can rotate it around, or I can go 2D, which is what I prefer for this sort of application. It's a Mercator projection. I'm probably speaking too fast, but anyway, that's pretty straightforward. And generally, this computer model is made up, especially in the oceans, right? The computer model is made from floating buoys in the Southern Ocean that are going around, and each one of those buoys will send back data to the World Meteorological Organization and various government departments that then relay all that information into a central pool, and they'll come up with various computer models, and some of the big ones are for free. Okay, and the models that we look at are down here. The ECMWF will suggest, for instance, that this is where the pressure system is and so on, and where the highs and lows are. But if you don't want to believe that one, you can go onto the GFS system, and you can see there were some slight changes there because this computer model, based on the buoys floating around, are coming up with a different scenario for the weather. And if you can go to Icon, you'll see it's changed again. So you've got options there to consider 3 different computer models that are all for free, and the amount of information that you get from that, combined with the way it's presented by Windy in a graphic form here, is really easy to understand and very valuable information. I tend to use as my number one weather forecasting system the ECMWF, all right? And then what I'll do, if it's getting important or there is some impacts associated with the weather, I will absolutely check it alongside GFS and see if one is showing worse or better weather. And sometimes I'll even go to Icon, okay? But my primary one is ECMWF, and I'm going to use that for this discussion here. Now, generally speaking, if I said to you, this is a high pressure system, wow, look at that. It's going around with the wind in a counterclockwise direction in the southern hemisphere. If you're in the northern hemisphere, it'd be a high pressure would be going around the other way, right? It's the same as water going down the drain in your toilet or in your bath plug, and pull the plug out, watch which direction the water goes down. And you can see here the isobars are reasonably, and this is an isobar of pressure, okay? If you've ever did any hiking and you know contours on maps, then everything on this line here, you'll see it says 126, okay? This little indicator here says 126 hectopascals, okay? And this one's 128. And as it's getting close to the center, you get to 130. So the center of this high has a reading of 130 hectopascals or millibars. And then as you move away from the center, it's dropping down. So you've got 128, and then 126 and 124 and so on. So each one of those, if it's 122 hectopascals here, it's the same measurement on these isobars going around the pressure system. And generally speaking, the closer the isobars are together, the stronger wind gradient you have and the stronger the winds actually are. So here you can see you've got a big gap between them, and the winds have slowed down. They're not as fast because the pressure gradient is not as close together and not as strong. And to imagine that, this is a high pressure system. So imagine this high coming up to like a mountain. And so that's a steep slope there, and you get to the top of the mountain, you roll over the other side, and you've got nearly a cliff here. It's dropping down like a cliff, right? But here it's more of an easy walk down the hill, okay? And that's the weight of the air on the surface of the earth. But I don't want to get too far into all of that. I don't want to give you a weather thing. But generally speaking, that's the center of the high. You can position that center of the high on the grid here of the map. And you can see up the top, if you can read that, you've got 90 degrees west of Greenwich, 100 degrees west of Greenwich, 110 degrees, and so on. So they're the lines of longitude. And then these lines here are latitude lines. And you can see here, that's on 40 degrees south. So that's 40 degrees south of the equator. This is 50 degrees south of the equator. And this one down here is 60 degrees south of the equator. So to position all this, here's South America, and there's Cape Horn. Okay, so you've got Cape Horn there. Now, the next thing that happens here on the scale is you've got a timeline along the bottom. It's the same as our tracker, where you have the days. So at the moment, the time here in Punta del Este, local time, is 1200, or just past 1200. This is only not the actual clock, but we're just after midday. And Zulu time, or UTC, Universal Coordinated Time, is 1500 UTC, or 1500 Greenwich. And that's on the 2nd of February. That's today. So that's the timeline there. And I can move this forecast forward or back just simply by hitting that with the cursor. And you can see this is the weather progressing. So if you watch this low pressure system here for a minute, This is on Sunday. You can see it's all changing and distorting. You can watch this low pressure. So I can just change the forecast days just by hitting it and sliding this bar along the bottom. So I can get a reasonable forecast. I mean, Sunday the 11th, that's going to be 10 days away. It's probably not so accurate. The forecast will change by the time we get there, but that's how you follow the forecasting through. And with a premium subscription, the weather's getting updated every couple of hours. Okay, so that's a low pressure system there. This is a high pressure system there. There's another low pressure system here over the bottom of South America here, and generally there's an airflow there. So that's a bit of an overview about the whole way you look at these isobaric maps and the barometric pressures of the systems. So what's actually happening right now? Let's just take it over here, and you can see Cape Horn there. Okay, so our fleet right now is around about, where are we? That's 45, that's 50, 45. Our fleet's generally in this mishmash here. In fact, I'm going to go back and just give you a review of where the fleet is without going into it too far. I'm just going to call up the tracker now to show you what's going on. So now I come on to our tracker, and you can see here, I'll try and use a similar size map. Here's when I go back to Windy. There's Cape Horn. Here's the lead boats, Penduic and Translated. The middle of the fleet's in a bit of a mishmash here, not much wind happening. And Explorer and Sterner have just had that bit of a blow go over them. The wind is backing off, and they're now heading out towards the east, towards Cape Horn. So just remember that. And this is sort of real time now, 16:30 on the 2nd of February. Okay, and the distance there is well, we can say here, if I have a look at this here, so there's 80, 90, they're about 95 degrees longitude west of Greenwich. So we'll look at the leaders there right now. So if I now go back to Windy, I hit that there, and I now come on to Windy here. Nope, that's the thingo. Hang on a sec. I want to go Windy there. That should come up. Yep. So we're back on Windy. I got to go to my Windy, and we, as we said, what I say, 95. Yeah, they're around about here somewhere. So the leaders, this is Penduic and Translated. They're around about here at the moment. And they're getting 30 knots, gusting 40 maybe. The rest of the fleet is in this calm area here, not much happening, and Explorer's just down the end. Now this is on gusts. I failed to mention here, that's gusting 28 knots. If I come over to the side here and I just hit wind, this is the forecast wind, okay, for this area. And everywhere I put this cursor, I can move it around, click and drag. You've got the latitude and longitude there, so I can match that exactly to any of the latitude and longitude positions of any boat in the fleet, right? But that's generally about where they are now. They got 21 knot westerly breeze, fantastic for Southern Ocean sailing. This is the leaders, right? And I can check their wave height just by hitting the waves there without moving the cursor, 2.5 meter seas from the west, okay, with a period of 8 seconds. That means as the swells come through, every 8 seconds, there's going to be another swell come through, all right? Now, there won't be a secondary swell, not much anyway. There'll be a little bit. Okay, the secondary swell is 0.5 meter from the west at every 13 seconds, right? So that's your secondary swell. So you can see at the moment, even when there's the main swell, there is a secondary swell, and they're both coming from the same directions, but it can make it confusing. I doubt whether there'll be a third swell. Period of 7 seconds, 0.5 meter again. So there is 3 different wave sets there. When you get into bigger swells here, you will actually see very distinct weather patterns. You'll have like a 6 meter swell coming from one direction and another 4 meter swell coming at 90 degrees to that. So we can see that they're in pretty good conditions, right? And then we'll go back to the wind. Now, if I want to see what it's gusting, there's another section here. I just hit the wind gust underneath it. And so it's gusting up to 27 knots. That's the maximum gusts, okay? Now, if I were to just go back to wind, and I'll just move Cape Horn down a minute, you can see all this color over here. As I move this cursor over the top, I'm getting real-time weather forecasting from that. So in the blues, they got 42 knots southerly there. This is the forecast wind. And over in the purples, you've got 36 knots southerly and so on. I'll just build this up just so you can see how it works and how I can get very accurate data on what's happening. There it is, 45 knots in the middle, and out here got 35 knots. Now watch what happens when I hit the gusts, because forecast wind gusts are going to be at least 33% higher. So straight away, same area, same time on the gust forecast, they're peaking in there at 58, nearly 60 knots in these lighter areas, right? And I can just wander around and I can see what the probable wind gusts are all through here. So it's a very accurate system. And generally speaking, the data coming out is pretty accurate. Things can change, you know, with the line of engagement here might vary by 50 miles or something like that. But generally, you get a very good feel for what's going on. And I can just, again, I can go to wave height, you know, 5 meter seas in there, and so on. So very accurate data, and I monitor this all the time, you know, never less than 8 hours. Every 8 hours I'm watching. But if I see something that's a concern, we monitor it regularly. So that's how that works. So you can see now, big surprise, that the Southern Ocean right now, as you know, has been very benign, and this is the real-time weather now. We've been really lucky as a fleet to have this kind of weather. And so what's happening with this big superstorm that's coming, you know, 2 systems colliding and all this sort of stuff. So I'll just drop it back a bit and you can see what happens as we progress forward on that. So I'm not going to slide it with the thing. I'm just going to push it through. The 2 systems that they're talking about, you can see there's a low pressure system here that's clearly defined. It's got a center of 975 hectopascals, and it's you know, not too bad, you know, not a big one, but not small either. It's quite low, but they go a lot lower than that, believe me. They can go down to 60, so you know, 700 and stuff. This is just a typical normal low pressure. Same up here, you've got a typical normal low pressure that's not that low. It's 993 hectopascals, okay, and they're sort of heading towards each other. So this is on Saturday, they're coming down on Sunday. And the so-called collision between the 2 is not so much a collision as it just molded into one geographically big low pressure system. And by that, I mean, it's not super low, right? But it is covering a large area. And by this one joining the second one, it's making it even bigger geographical area. But it's by no means a collision of 2. If it was a major collision, you'd get a big squeeze going on. It's still pretty, you know, this is a ridgy-didge Southern Ocean's low forming up, okay? And let's just have a wander around at this point here. Now, this is on Sunday, and the ultim that was coming through was talking about on Sunday there's going to be this big superstorm and it's going to have 70 knots and all this sort of stuff. Well, it's going to have patches in it that are quite demanding. But here's the forecasting at the moment. You've got 20 knots, you know, down the bottom of the Cape Horn, you've got 31 knots. Everywhere else is pretty reasonable. Even on the other side here, yes, you've got 35 knots. But the amazing thing for our fleet here is that for OGR, the fleet is going to be in the middle here. It's going to miss this tight band of wind. If all goes well, Explorer and Sterner will be on the back edge of this, so they won't be impacted by this bit of a squeeze here, right? And the rest of the fleet will be down in the middle here for us. So I'm not worried about it at all for Sunday, because they're not quite there by then. But as we pull it forward, you can see now there's quite a bit of a band over the top, and that'll be above the OGR fleet. The OGR fleet is down here, and the center of the low is still sitting there. It's not getting any super intensity, but there is very tight isobars here, okay? And that's going to be behind and above the OGR fleet, all right? And that's only forecasting, you know, 30 knots, 35 knots. There's 36 knots, so it's not a big deal for you know, I absolutely wouldn't call this a superstorm or an apocalyptic storm. I mean, ask Mark Sinclair, he'll tell you what 80, 90 knots is down there. He got hit by 3 or 4 of them, and some of the GGR fleet in the past have had big ones, and this is geographically very big. I'll come back to that, but in terms of a low, it's sort of pretty organized. and it's not super anything. It's just a bit of a storm. Now, if we look at right on the coast here, see what's happening there? You're getting a squeeze again, 42 knots. And remembering, this is actually the forecast wind. Let's now have a look at the gusts. This is where it gets kind of fun. So bingo, you look at that, you think, oh, jeepers. So over in the squeeze area, look at that. You still only got 45 to 50 knots. This is the peak gusts. Right. And again, that's not a supercell storm, apocalyptic anything. Right. It's just 45, 50 knots. Doesn't even show 50. There's a bit up there that shows 50. Certainly over here, squeezed up against the coast, but no one would be there. You're getting 50s and 60s, but you ain't getting your 70s and 80s and 90s that you regularly see down here. Okay. And it's a big geographical system. So look at this. It's huge. That's probably 1,500 miles across there. It's a massive system. But the center is only 955 hectopascals, right? So it's not a super low, but these gradients create the wind speed. And you can see, as I said, it's not even there right that time. And this is the Sunday that others are talking about 70 knots and stuff, 60, 50, 60, 70 knots. And it may well get there, but I'm not seeing it at the moment. And for the fleet, unbelievably, even at this point, the fleet's going to be in here somewhere, right? It'll be just above them, but it is coming down. So the fleet generally will be here. And then as it progresses across, it's coming down. I'm going to take this back to the wind speed now. This is the forecast wind speed. I don't want to frighten anyone. And look at the forecast wind speeds, 27, 30s, 35 knots, 34 knots. It's not even warranting a weather advisory from us as organisers to the fleet. It's not that big a deal. I'll just pick this up again. So this is on the Sunday. We come through to the Monday again. By this stage, the fleet will be just on the edge of this. The leaders will be just on the edge. They'll be getting 35 knots, forecast, no big deal. Sea state, waves. Up here, you've got 7 meters, not a problem. I've been down here in serious stuff myself, I'm talking 18, 20 meter swells, with seas on it, a long time ago. But it's not nice. It's Southern Ocean, but I'm just trying to make everyone realize this is just what you get down here. And then you go through to Monday and it's nearly all gone, and then here's the forecast wind. Forecast wind strength, right on the tip. You're not likely to be there unless you want to have a look. And with this sort of weather, you may not want to get that close. 40 knot forecast, right? 35, 70s, 40s. It's 40 forecast, and gusts will be up around 50, maybe even more, 50 and so on. So, and sea state going through Drake Passage, sea state 7.5 meters. That's a ring ding, perfect Cape Horn storm that everyone dreams about, and they'll all have their own opinion on what's going on. So by Monday, you'll start to see, yes, it's blowing. Yes, it's heavy winds, heavy seas, and it's the full deal. But all of our fleet from OGR is well set up to cope with all of this. We wish them well. We hope they get through safely. We know the crews are well experienced now. They've gone nearly two-thirds of the way around the world. They're well and truly prepared. So as an organizer, I'm not concerned. We'll keep an eye on them. We'll give them any weather forecasting that they need to stay safe. But I just wanted to say it's not what some people are thinking. Yes, it's gales and stuff coming through around Cape Horn, but at the moment, bearing in mind once this goes through, and it might only be the leaders, it may only be Penjuic and Translated that get close to this. After that, if you watch what happens here, if the forecast holds true, there's a little low pressure up the top that'll come down, but there's a window there to zip around before it gets there, and it blows itself apart a bit before it even gets there. So, to me, it's all looking pretty reasonable, but we'll keep our fingers crossed because it's absolutely not a calm weather. It's absolutely not even moderate weather when they get close, but it ain't a superstorm and it ain't an apocalyptic storm. It's part of what you get down there. So we look forward to taking them through. Okay, I'll just ask a couple quick questions here before I get ready and shut this one down and start the other one. G'day, is Charles above the world? Is Charles still above the world record? I'm not sure. I haven't followed all the technical stuff. He's doing a great job. And if I was on that ultimate, I'd be doing, I don't know, that's just a bit of a wank from me. I'd do the same thing, slow down. No use to increasing risks. He's got a good lead, and it's fascinating to think that the ultimates are down there and watch the contrast with our fleet. It's really really cool. Yeah, John. Yeah, exactly right. I guess those folks didn't follow the GGR. Jeepers, they were getting clobbered all. Oh, well, not really, not this year, but the year before. Crikeys. Yeah, so all good. Anyway, I just thought it was worth giving an explanation there, and I can't recommend Windy enough. Yeah, and Gitana, all the ultimates got amazing sailors. I don't know how those guys manage those boats. Honestly, it's just fantastic to watch and quite a epic adventure. So good luck to them as well. Yeah, the buoys are free floating. I think we launched about a total of about 24 of those buoys. They're big, massive things. You just drop them over the side and they're in cardboard, and then the cardboard dissolves and the whole thing comes out. And it's got drogues on it. They last for quite a long time. But we've deployed many of them from ships and bits and pieces while I've been doing a lot of transits down to Antarctica, and they often ask us to deploy those buoys at different times. So, okay, that's it. I'm getting out of here because I'm coming back on again in a minute. So I'll see you later. Thanks for that. Why didn't that come up? It's meant to be on there. What's going on? There it is. See ya.